Welcome to the tutorial over 8.6, Solving Rational Equations and Inequalities. Your new vocabulary will be a rational equation, a weighted average, and a rational inequality. Example 1, we're going to solve 5 over 24 plus 2 over 3 minus x is equal to 1/4, and then we're going to check our solution. Alright, so on this, I'm going to separate this into two separate problems and then come bring it back. So I'm going to think of this as halves. The stuff on the left side of the equal sign I'm going to deal with first. So 5 over 24 plus 2 over 3 minus x, and then I'm going to have my 1/4 over here. We still have our equal sign in between, but I just want you to see that I'm talking about two separate things here. Now, in order for these to be combined, you're going to have to do your SMILE method, okay? So anytime you're going to cross an equal sign, you don't have to use the SMILE method, okay? So cross multiply across an equal sign, no SMILE. When you have just addition or subtraction in between, you have to do the SMILE method. Okay, so let's go back to what we were doing. Alright, so I have 5 times x minus 3 minus x, and I'm going to put that in parentheses here. I'm going to take my middle value to give me a plus, and then to get the rest of the numerator, 24 times 2, which is 48. We're going to divide by, can't forget your SMILE, so 24 times 3 minus x. Alright, I'm not forgetting about the equals 1/4, but I do want to clean this up first before I start cross multiplying. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute and get 15 minus 5x plus 48 over 24 times 3 is 72 minus 24x. Alright, combine like terms real quick. We have 48 plus 15, and that gives me 63. Make sure you have this written down. You get 63 minus 5x over 72 minus 24x. Alright, so this is where we can actually put the equations back together. So we have 63 minus 5x over 72 minus 24x. And this is going to be equal to 1/4. Now we can multiply by the denominator on both sides. So multiply by 72 minus 24x times 72 minus 24x. These are going to cancel. I'm going to be left with 63 minus 5x is equal to, and I can go ahead and distribute this, the 1/4. So that's 72 divided by 4, which is 18. And then we get 24 divided by 4, which is 6. Okay. So we get negative 6x. Alright, so now we can get x's on one side, numbers on the other. So I'm going to add 5x to both sides to get 63 is equal to 18 minus x. I'm going to subtract 18 from both sides, and I get negative x is equal to 45. And I don't want negative x, so I divide by -1, I get x equals negative 45. Now, we're not done. We need to actually check our solution to make sure it's actually correct. So I'm going to rewrite my equation, but instead of an x, I'm going to replace it with a negative 45. Now I'm simply going to reduce until I can see whether or not this equals 1/4. So plug in this to your calculator. If you end up getting 1/4 equals 1/4, then your solution works. And if you plug it in and it doesn't, then your solution does not work. When you plug this into your calculator, you do indeed get 1/4, so negative 45 is your answer. Example 2, we're going to solve p squared minus p minus 5 over p plus 1 is equal to p squared minus 7 over p minus 1 plus p. So again, I'm going to treat this as two separate equations first. So I'm going to deal with the right side this time because I need to make sure I combine these correctly with the SMILE method, okay? This one's already combined, so I'm going to leave it as is. So p squared minus p minus 5 over p plus 1 equals, now let's get these and do the SMILE method to combine them. So p squared minus 7 over p minus 1 plus p over 1. Any whole number or variable can be written as a fraction just over 1. So we're going to SMILE. So we're going to cross multiply to get p squared minus 7 times 1. Take the middle sign, so plus p minus 1 times p. So p minus 1 times p divided by, and don't forget to SMILE, p minus 1. Alright, so simplify by distributing this p. The 1 goes away because you don't really need to write it. So we have p squared minus 7 plus p squared minus p over p minus 1. Make sure you have that written down. So now I'm going to combine like terms. So I have 2p squared. So I have 2p squared minus p minus 7 over p minus 1. From here, we're actually going to cross multiply. Now, since there's an equal sign here, we do not SMILE. Equal means no SMILE method. Okay, all it's going to be is cross multiply. Okay, cross multiply only. So we're going to take this factor, so p squared minus p minus 5. We're going to multiply. Actually, let me put this on a different slide so you can see it. So when we cross multiply, first we get p squared minus p minus 5 times p minus 1 is equal to p plus 1 times 2p squared minus p minus 7. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is we actually need to double distribute. So we get p squared times p, which is p cubed. P squared times negative 1, we get negative p squared. Negative p times p, it's going to be negative p squared. Negative p times negative 1, positive p. We get negative 5 times p, so minus 5p. We get negative 5 times negative 1, which is going to be a positive 5. This is going to be equal to, I'm going to put the next one in green, so p times 2p squared is going to be 2p cubed. P times negative p is negative p squared. P times negative 7 is negative 7p. We have 1 times 2p squared, so that's 2p squared. We get 1 times negative p, which is negative p, and 1 times negative 7, which is negative 7. Next thing we need to do is combine like terms. Okay, so we only have one cube term. We have 2 p terms here, so we're going to get p cubed minus 2p squared. Let's see, we have a positive p and minus 5p, so that's minus 4p plus 5 on this side. And on the other side, we have 2p cubed. We have 2p squared minus p squared, which is going to give us a positive p squared. And then we have negative p and negative 7p, which is going to be negative 8p minus 7. All right, next step, we need to get everything to one side. So I'm going to subtract p cubed. I am going to add 2p squared, so 2p squared. I'm going to add 4p, so add 4p. And the last one I'm going to subtract 5, so subtract 5 from both sides. It's where we get all of this to cancel. We get 0 is equal to p cubed plus 3p squared minus 4p minus 12. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to factor by grouping, okay? So you're going to see what you have in common in the first two groups and what you have in common in the second two. I see that I have a p squared in common. That leaves me with a p plus 3. And on the second group, I have a negative 4 in common, so I'm going to factor out negative 4. And I'm left with p plus 3. So our two factors here are p squared minus 4 and p plus 3. Now we're not done because this is the difference of squares, so we can actually get one more answer. And if you remember your difference of square answer rules, you get the square root of p, which is p. Square root of 4 is 2. And you have to have your opposite sign, so plus and minus. And then we have p plus 3. So, we have three answers here. If we set each of these equal to 0, we get p plus 2 is equal to 0, p minus 2 equals 0, and p plus 3 equals 0. So, if we solve for p in each of these cases, I get p equals negative 2, p equals positive 2, and p equals negative 3. Now, in order to determine whether or not all of these are right, you have to check each of your answers. So the first thing we're going to do is try p equals negative 3. That means in our original equation, everywhere we see a p, we're going to plug in a negative 3. So we get negative 3 squared minus negative 3 minus 5 over negative 3 plus 1. And we don't know if that's quite equal to negative 3 squared minus 7 over negative 3 minus 1 plus negative 3. Plug each of those into your calculator. If you get the same thing on both sides, then it's an answer. So in this case, yes, p equals negative 3 is an answer. So that's 1. The next one you want to check is if p equals negative 2. So everywhere you see a negative 3 on here, you're now going to replace it with a negative 2. Plug that into your calculator and see if they both equal the same thing on each side. And when you do that, you end up getting the same thing on each side. And the last one you want to check is whether or not p equals 2, and it is an answer. So again, do the same thing. Everywhere you see a negative 2, erase it, and now put in a positive 2. And indeed, we do end up getting the same thing on each side. So p equals 2 is a solution as well. So all three of these will work. So your answers are p equals negative 3, negative 2, and 2. All right, example number 3. We're actually going to do a mixture problem. It says Aaron adds 80% brine, salt, and water, solution to 16 ounces of solution that is 10% brine. How much of the solution should be added to create a solution that is 50% brine? Oh, look, we're bringing in some chemistry. Aren't you so excited? All right, so the first thing we need to do is figure out what we're actually looking for. And what we're actually looking for is Aaron needs to know how much of a solution that needs to be added to the original solution to create the new one. So let's actually set up a table so we can keep everything straight. So on the side we're going to have the amount of brine, and we're going to have total solution. And let's see, we're going to have our original. We're going to have our added. And then we're going to have our new solution here. Alright, so let's actually pick out the pieces of information. It says Aaron adds 80% brine. Okay, so that's going to go in this added column with the amount of brine. And 80% is actually going to be written as 0.80. So we added 8%. And we don't know how much of the solution he did add, so we're going to let that be times x. Now, originally, we had 16 ounces. That was 10% brine. So that's going to be our original. We know that it's 10%, which we're going to write that as a 0.10. So we're going to have 0.10, and we know that this is multiplied by 16 ounces. So, if we want to figure out what our new solution is going to be, we're going to take these two and we're going to add them together to get a new solution of 0.10 times 16 plus 0.8x. Okay, and then here we have total solution, so we have 16 ounces here. We don't know how many ounces here, so to get our total, we're going to have 16 plus x ounces. So what we're going to do to get the percentage of the brine solution, that's going to be equal to the amount of brine over our total solution, which we actually have set up for us. Alright, so this piece here is going to be represented on the right side, and the percent of brine solution, which is 50%, and we're going to set this up as a proportion. So this is actually going to be 50% over 100%, because that would be the total solution. So let me rewrite this as a proportion. So the easiest way to solve this is to actually cross multiply. Remember, when you have an equal sign in between, all you have to do is cross multiply. You do not have to do the small method. So we get 50 times 16 plus x. It's going to be equal to 100 times 0.1 times 16 plus 0.8x. Alright, so now we're going to distribute. We get 50 times 16 and 50 times x to get 800 plus 50x is equal to, let's see, we have 100 times 1.6 plus 0.8x. Now let's distribute our 100 to get 160 plus 80x. Now we're going to get x's on one side and numbers on the other. So let's subtract 50x to get 800 is equal to 160 minus 30, plus 30x. Subtract 160 from both sides. We get 640 is equal to 30x. So if we divide by 30, we get 21 1/3 ounces equals x. So that means we would have to add 21 1/3 ounces to the solution to make it a 50% solution. And you should know how to do this from chemistry. Example number 4. Lilia swims for 5 hours in a stream that has a current of 1 mile per hour. She leaves her dock and swims upstream for 2 miles and then back to her dock. What is her swimming speed in still water? Well, the first thing we need to do is use the distance equals rate times time formula. And what we can do is we can actually rework this to get T is equal to D divided by R, which is what we're going to be using. Alright, so we know that she's swimming for a total of 5 hours. Alright, so let's talk about the time going with the current. We know that we went for a distance of 2 miles, and we're going to have our normal rate, and she's swimming upstream, so we're going to say that's -1, okay, because with the current, she swims 1 mile an hour better, and with against it, it's 1 mile an hour less. All right, so we have this rate, or this time, plus the amount of time it took her to go against the current. So she swam another 2 miles, but this time there's the rate of the still water plus 1 because she's going with the current this time. And this is going to equal a total of 5 hours. So let me label this for you real quick. And I just realized that I said that backwards. I meant that you have the rate of still water minus 1 for when you're going with the current, and the rate plus 1 going against the current, because you have to swim harder when you're going against the current, and you don't have to swim as hard when you're going with the current. Okay, so that's what the plus and minus 1 are meant to represent. So again, this is talking about the total time going with the current, total time against, and that gives us our total time period because she swam for 5 hours. Who wants to swim for 5 hours is beyond me. So now we get to use our SMILE method to figure out what our rate is. All right, so SMILE method. We're taking 2 times r plus 1. Take your middle sign, which is a plus sign, and then we're taking 2 times r minus 1. That gives me my numerator, and don't forget to smile to get your denominator. So on the bottom, you get r minus 1 times r plus 1. And this equals 5. Next thing you want to do is multiply by the denominator on both sides. So we get r minus 1 times r plus 1. And then r minus 1 times r plus 1. It cancels out over here. Go ahead and distribute your r's, distribute your 2's to get 2r plus 2 plus 2r minus 2. On the other side, if we FOIL, we get r times r, which is r squared, r times 1, which is r, negative 1 times r, which is minus r, and negative 1 times 1 is minus 1. These two terms cancel out, and we're multiplying by 5, so distribute your 5. So we get 5r squared minus 1. And here, if we combine like terms, let's see, the 2's cancel, and 2r plus 2r is 4r. So we get 4r is equal to 5r squared minus 1. Now, since this is a quadratic, you need to subtract and get everything to one side. So you get 0 is equal to 5r squared minus 4r minus 1. In order to figure out what r is, we're going to have to plug into the quadratic formula, where in this case, our a is positive 5, b is negative 4, and c is negative 5. And you plug and check. So when you plug this into the calculator, the first thing you want to do is type this out, but you're only going to use one of the signs. So you're going to use the plus sign first, and then the second time you'll go back and highlight, and you'll change this sign to a negative sign, and you'll end up getting 2 answers. So r is roughly about 1.5, or about negative 0.7. So since we're talking about speed, we need our positive answer. So our rate in still water is about 1.5 miles per hour. Example 5. To be honest, I don't know how to pronounce these names. These two mow lawns together, and this W person is working alone, could complete a particular job in 4.5 hours, and this U person could complete it alone in 3.7 hours. How long does it take to complete the job when they work together? So remember, we have distance is equal to rate times time, and we're thinking, okay, if we divide by r on both sides, we have time is equal to, oops, just kidding. Sorry, we're thinking of rate. So our rate is going to be equal to our distance divided by time. Well, in this case, our distance is 1 lawn. So the rate for this W person is going to be 1 lawn over 4.5 hours. And the rate for the U person is going to be 1 lawn over 3.7 hours. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these times and add them together to get 1 over 4.5 plus 1 over 3.7, and that's going to be equal to 1 ln over x. And that's going to give us our actual rate of how long it will take them to work together. So, in your calculator, I want you to plug in 1 over 4.5 plus 1 over 3.7, and you end up getting 0.49292 blah 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 is equal to 1 over x. Now I want you to take that, highlight it, and put a -1 next to it. So we have 0.49 to the -1 power, and that's actually going to give me x. And all that did was take the reciprocal. It inverted this, so it's just a quick calculator trick, and you end up getting about 2.03 hours that it would take for them to mow the lawn together. And this brings us to our last key concept. We're going to be solving rational inequalities. First step, you have to state the excluded values. These values are for which the denominator is 0. Step 2, you have to solve the related equation. Step 3, use the values determined from the previous steps to divide a number line into intervals. And step 4, we're going to test the value for each interval to determine which intervals contain the values that satisfy the inequality. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out what values of k are going to make these equal to 0. So 3k equals 0, so that means k is 0. And 9k equal to 0, well, that means k is equal to 0 as well. So we know that in this, k cannot equal 0. Alright, here, you don't necessarily need to do the small method, because in order to get a common denominator, all you have to do is multiply this first fraction by 3 over 3, and you'll be able to combine them. So you get 3 over 9k plus 2 over 9k. It's going to be less than or equal to 2/3. Here you can take the numerators and add them together like a normal fraction to get 5 over 9 times k is less than 2/3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this to an equation with an equal sign. All it is related. We're not necessarily telling you that's the answer. We have 5 over 9k is equal to 2/3. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cross multiply so I can see what my answer is. So I get 5 times 3, which is 15, is equal to 9 times 2, which is 18k. And if I divide on both sides, I get k is equal to 5/6. So the next step, we're going to draw vertical lines at the excluded value, which was k is 0. And then we're going to draw a vertical line at 5/6 as well. Now we have 3 different intervals that we're going to test. So we can test anything that's to the left. So let's just be easy and choose -1 for k. And you want to plug in -1, and we end up getting -5/9 is less than 2/3. This is a true statement, so that means this is part of our solution where k is less than 0. Now we're going to try a k value that's in between 0 and 5/6. So for instance, we can use 1/3. Doesn't matter which one you use, just make sure it's between 0 and 5/6. So if you were to plug that into your calculator, you would get 5/3 is less than 2/3, which that's not true. So this middle section cannot be a solution to my equation. So now we need to try a number in the last section. So it needs to be anything greater than 5/6. So make it easy on yourself, and we can just plug in a 1. So if we plug in a 1 and we put it in our calculators, we get 5/9 is less than 2/3. And that is actually true as well. So we have 2 answers. So our solution is k is less than 0, or k is greater than 5/6. Thanks for bearing with me. And congratulations, you just finished your last lesson of the year.